Welcome in. This is the Champagne Room live, but tonight we're doing things a little
Yeah,
bit different. Um, we're doing
yeah.
it's kind of like a collab, but not because we're both the Champagne Room. But Drew of Oskee Talk and Champagne Room, long time, is joining, and we're gonna be Oskee Talk live tonight. So, Drew, thanks for coming on here.
I love it. It's like after dark. This is awesome. Yeah, thanks for having me on, man.
Absolutely. It's been interesting because here we are, May 18th, and I was thinking it's going to be pretty hard to come up with content after the tournament and things like that.
Right?
And I'm sure there's still going to be time like in June and July where it is going to be tough to come up with stuff. But what's sort of been the biggest thing you've had your eyes on, or the biggest thing that's been keeping your attention since the tournament?
Well, certainly the NBA drafts predicament, I guess, is what you would want to call it. The curious case of Andrei Stojakovic. I know you had Robbie Nardini on, former Illini hoops manager. For those that don't know, he's super tapped into the program. He's got connections all over the place, and he's wired about this like all day, every day. And he brought up a very interesting point, and we talked about it a little bit on Oskee Talk too, with should players go, should they stay, that kind of stuff. But he brought up a very good point with Stojakovic, and that there isn't the same amount of players going to the draft or declaring and then staying in. Like up until maybe 2 years ago, you had 200 guys declare for the draft.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, okay, well, let's just do the math here. There's 60 draft picks, and going into the season, like who 30 of those guys are going to be at least. So you basically have 170 guys that are competing for 30 spots. And the guys that stay in, it's like, who is telling you to stay in? Like, I've talked about the advisor-advisee relationship a lot, of like, who is giving you this advice? Like, if you're going to be the 35th pick or the 40th pick, like, it might behoove you to stay in. Like, you're probably going to get drafted. But if you're 83rd, like, you're not going to get picked. Like, no one's going to. This isn't the NFL where some team reaches and the 75th guy goes 35th. Or it's like, well, we really need a quarterback, so we're going to take a guy who should have gone 50th and make him 20th. Like, it's not how the NBA works. The NBA is, a smaller pool. There's only 2 rounds. Most teams, unless you're the Thunder, have 1 or 2 picks. The Thunder have like 12, and they just trade them like it's like monopoly money for them. So yeah, in years past, it was like, well, if you're projected as the 88th best player, like, why are you staying in? It doesn't make sense. And a lot of these kids stay in and they don't get drafted. And now with NIL, you're seeing not just older guys coming back and playing, but maybe some kids that are like, might be mid-second. I'll make more money staying in school for another year. If that's all we're talking about is money, why not just make that $2 or $3 or $4 million at the school I'm at, or go somewhere else? So the Stojakovic thing is interesting. And Robbie had pointed that out, I think yesterday you had him on, and he was like, the draft classes now are not as thick as they used to be. So with a lot of the better, quote unquote, better players going back to school, yeah, if you're projected 53rd, you're probably going to go 53rd. You might go 43rd instead of being 83rd. And now maybe you pull it out of your hat and you go like 58th or 59th. It's like, if you're in the draft right now, you're probably going to get drafted. There's no like real wave. There's no one that's going to sneak up. I know the combine's done now. It's not like someone's going to sneak up and they were 100th and now they're 30th. Like, that just doesn't happen. So Yeah, that's the interesting thing to me is Stojakovic. I'm still leaning towards him coming back to Champaign. Uh, there's no reason to not go through this process. Go to the combine, do the workouts, do all. There's no reason to not do it, even if you didn't think you were going to get drafted. Kofi did it. Coleman Hawkins did it. Damask was at the combine a couple of years ago. Like, no one's like, oh, I can't wait to draft Marcus Damask, but he still went through the process, got the evals. Like, there's no reason to not go through that and see what they say. Io did it. Io, I think, declared or entered the draft as a sophomore and then got the feedback and decided, I'm going to come back. So I have no issue with Andrei Stojakovic doing that, seeing what they say, put his feelers out. But you're getting guaranteed money in NIL. And if you're a second round pick, even if you're like a back end first round pick, you get like 2 years. I think first round pick, you get 2 years of guaranteed money. And then it's like a team option thing. With second rounds, you don't even get that. You might not make it out of camp. And it's like, would you rather play in the Big Ten in front of the best crowds in the country, the most ravenous basketball fans in the country? You're going to be on national TV every single night. You're going to be on probably a top 10 team, be one of the favorites to win the Big Ten, one of the favorites to win the national championship, all that stuff. Or do you want to play for the Birmingham Squadron? Like, it's just, that's the stuff you got to think about. And to me, it's more of a math problem than it used to be. It's like, well, if all we're talking about is money, shit, I can make more money playing at Illinois, being the sixth man. I might not even be starting in Illinois, and I'm still going to make a couple $1 million. The NBA is still going to be there. It's not like it's going to implode next year. And if I do what I did this past year and show the same stuff and just get incrementally better, then I'll be the 38th rated player or the 28th rated player. And then I know for sure I'm getting drafted. So long answer, but I that's been the most fascinating part of this. The Wagler stuff is interesting to me because, like, I think everyone's getting it now because we didn't talk about Wagler at this point in time. Last year, even in the summer, we're like, is this guy going to play? Look at all the talent that's around in Illinois. And then boom, he just explodes. And now he's this big star. And it's like, yeah, he's probably going to go in the lottery. And now it's, hell, he might go top 5. He might go number 4. Like, it's just, there's no way to gauge it. It's based on teams and what they think is important. I said on the show last week, I would be stunned at this point if he fell below number 7 to Sacramento. It seems like 5, 6, 7 is where he might end up. I don't see him falling any further than that. But we said the same thing about KJ last year. Like, oh, he's the lottery for sure. He was picked, like, all the mocks had him 8, 9, 10, and then he goes 20. So I don't want to jump ahead of myself too much, but it seems like the general consensus is he's going to be like a top 6 pick. And if he goes to Sacramento, he might as well just retire because that's where NBA careers go to die.
Yeah, it's kind of like being a quarterback getting drafted by the Browns or something like that.
The Jets. Yeah.
Or the Jets. Yeah. Yeah, it's so that was a great way to encapsulate all of it. I would include the Timberwolves stuff has been really interesting to me. I know it's done now, but that was a huge spark for Illinois fans, and it is cool to care more a lot about the NBA now. Like I've always been kind of a fair weather NBA fan. Like I used to watch a lot more as a kid, but yeah, now like, oh, Will Riley just scored 25 points and KJ hit a few threes, and now Keaton's going to go. And then, in the next few years, the Ivisic twins are going to be there, and Andre, and like,
I know it's crazy, right? Like,
yeah. We went from none to hopefully we could have a full roster of Illinois guys.
The Illinois influence in the NBA now is weird. It's like, football kind of went through this too a little bit. Like we had a guy here, a guy there. Like maybe a guy you take a flyer on a guy in the 6th or 7th round or something. And now it's like you can pretty much bet every year 3 or 4 guys are going to go just based on Brett Bielema's reputation, his staff readying these guys to come in and play. Like he had that NFL experience as an assistant. Like they know he's got some cachet. Like they trust his ability to evaluate talent and all that. And certainly, if for no other reason, if you want to talk all the crap you want about Brad Underwood and he's not a good coach and X's and O's and tactician and blah, 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 he knows how to get dudes to come to Champaign. Like he's getting players, and I'm still going to hang my hat on that the more players you have, the better you're going to do. Yes, you need some in-game things here and there to give you an edge, but if Dusty May was rocking his FAU roster in Ann Arbor, they're not sniffing a national championship. They're not sniffing a Big Ten title. Like it's not going to happen. You got to get dudes, and Brad and his staff are really good at bringing in dudes. And they found that market inefficiency with the European stuff. They found a way to kind of capitalize on that. They found a nice little pocket in the recruiting world that a lot of other teams weren't taking advantage of, and they've made that work for them. And now other teams are following suit and trying to bring in European guys or players from overseas. The women's team's doing it now. Shauna Green's been doing that since she got here. You're seeing more and more teams kind of following that trend. So yeah, it's interesting how we had Myers Leonard and then nothing for a decade, basically. And now you've seen Io come in as a second rounder, probably should have been a first rounder based on the way he's played. He's made those other 37 GMs look kind of silly. And then of course TSJ, and now you had Yakachonis and Riley the last season, and you're going to get at least one more one and done in Keaton Wagler this year, and maybe Stojakovic stays in. I think Boswell's going to get drafted, like we just talked about with Dre. If you're in it at this point, you're probably going to get drafted. And I think he was picked like in the mid to late 40s or something, or early 50s. And it's like, I think he's going to go somewhere. And like I said a couple weeks back on the show, I think some team's going to be happy that he was there at 52 or 55 or whatever. And in a couple of years, are going to be like, man, that's a really good, tough player. He's not going to be a star player, but he could be a guy that plays in the league for a decade and is just very sneaky, under the radar, does all the right stuff. It depends on fit and franchise and all that stuff. But yeah, it's been fun to follow those Illini players. I think a lot of what you said is true, that the NBA it's kind of hard to follow the NBA now for a lot of folks. So now you just latch on to, hey, this guy played for my favorite team, so I'm going to cheer for them. And it helps when you have two really good players, two of the best at Illinois, like ever. And now they're playing on the same team at the same time, and they're winning. They're not playing on some, dumpster fire team. Like they're contributing meaningfully in the NBA. It's awesome to see.
Yeah, it is hard to believe, and just the fact Io and Terrence had such big impacts, and like you said, translating to football, it's just something we went without for a long time. I mean, it's hard to believe it's already been almost a month, like 3 or 4 weeks since Miles Scott got drafted, JC Davis got drafted, of course, Gabe got drafted. So those will be cool to keep up with those guys too. But something else big that happened in the last week or so is Illinois added Duke to the schedule for a home and home series. We're going to Cameron Indoor this year, and then they're coming here next year. So the schedule's already loaded, but what's your thoughts to Illinois adding Duke to the schedule?
Well, the first thing I would say is, did Brad Underwood sign some kind of blood oath to never get the first leg of the home and home?
Yeah.
Like Texas Tech, I think, is the only time it's happened. We had Arizona in 19 and 2021, went to Tucson first. We did the Tennessee thing. This played in Knoxville, then went to Champaign. Then we had the neutral in Nashville. You know, the UConn stuff's not a home and home, but, you know, it's just wild how, like, we're not ever getting that first game. But second of all, this is what you want to see, right? This is you telling the country that you've arrived. And I know the last time they played Duke, it was ugly. It was horrible. You also had Cooper Flagg on that team and Model Watch, and they had like 3 lottery picks on that team. And Illinois had a couple of really good players that went to the NBA, but it's not the same. Illinois didn't have 9 McDonald's All-Americans, 8 5-star, like they had 2 really good guys individually, but they weren't surrounded by other guys that were going to be in the league. Wasn't Knipple on that team too? So you had Model Watch, Connor Knipple, and Cooper Flagg. Like, what?
And we were pretty hurt too. Tommy didn't play, or somebody didn't play.
I think at that, and then we had the bubonic plague running through the locker room. I'm sure I forget who, but there was probably 4 or 5 guys that were sick. Had avian flu, whatever the hell it was. Yes, I mean you got to look at that in a vacuum. Like, oh, they had the number 1 overall pick in the draft, and like the number 6 overall pick in the draft, and the number 9 pick in the draft on the same team at the same time. Like, Duke is Duke, right? That's how Duke is going to be. You want to have that coach discussion, we can have it. Like, is John Shire a very, very good coach? Absolutely. But it doesn't hurt that you've got 40 years of backstory and, 15 Sweet 16s or whatever, 15 Final Fours and 5 national championships from your predecessor. Like, that's going to linger forever. That's not going to be like, one 500 season and you just throw that away. We're not going to get any recruits anymore. Like, it's Duke, so they and UConn are like the top of the scale. They're the peak. That's where you want to get to. And Brad understands that. That's why he's recruiting the way he recruits. That's why he's scheduling like an absolute maniac and putting this stuff out there. Let's go. Let's play the best teams. We'll go to Durham. Like, we're not scared to go to Cameron and play them. Like, let's do it. What's the worst thing that happens? We lose? Okay, we could say, we lost to Duke when they were number 3 in the country and lost in their home gym. Like, it doesn't matter. And now with the tournament expansion, we saw this coming for a couple of years, but with the tournament expansion and the way things are evaluated with net and everything, you don't even have to win the games. You just got to schedule them. You can't schedule Mississippi Valley State 11 times like some teams used to do. Some teams still do. And then they're like, wait, what? Why can't we get in? Well, you played Glass Joe 11 times, and now you're going to go 9 and 11 in the Big Ten and be like, but we play in the Big Ten. Yeah, Brad's like, to hell with that. We're going to play. And I think there's another, they added a game now. So you're allowed 12 non-conference games now. So we're going to play 6 bangers and we're going to play 6 cupcakes. And then we're going into the Big Ten. So they're not done. I guarantee you that. They're not done. They played 5 of these games last year. You count Mizzou as one of those because it's a power conference team. They're not done. There was rumors of, I think, Houston and maybe North Carolina. I'd like to see Kansas or Kentucky personally. The fact that Champaign and Lexington are only separated by like 4 hours and they hadn't played in 40 years or something like that until the 2024 tournament. Like, that's nuts. Like, those teams should be clawing and scratching to play each other. So yeah, they're not done. There's going to be more, but You're playing UConn and Duke. Those are the two bluest of bloods. And you're going to play, isn't it like back to back or something? Like, or no, they're playing Texas Tech in Lubbock. And then literally a week later, they're playing in Cameron. It's like November 17th, I think is the day. So, and then of course you're going to play UConn later on down the road. They'll play in Champaign. That they're renewing the Duke rivalry. That'll be December 4th in 2027. So that's going to be probably right before the Big Ten jump where they play those two Big Ten games. Yeah, thank you for showing that. Texas Tech, Tuesday, November 10th at in Lubbock. And then not for nothing, they'll probably have one game in between there, I would think. Probably a home game against Southern North Dakota State or something, and then they'll go to Duke November 17th. And then UConn in Chicago December 4th.
Yeah,
it's wild.
That's going to be a crazy schedule.
It's great. I mean, yeah. It's great. And like I said, obviously you want to win the games, but you don't even have to win the games now. You just have to say, look who we played. And the committee is going to say, yeah, they played blah, 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 blah. I mean, Auburn almost got in playing this exact same schedule and they were 500. So if you're 19 and 14 or something, like you're going to coast right in now with this, the additional 8 teams. Like it's going to be cake. You win 18 games now and you play in a power league, you're probably going to get in.
Yeah, it's I was going to say Auburn feels like the exception, but they had so many losses and really not a ton of wins to hang their hat on, but now that the tournament's getting bigger, I mean, Auburn would have been in. So there's literally no downside in scheduling these games. I mean, it's great for it's great for the fans. I mean, tickets are going to be crazy. Like it's
I mean, that's the only thing. Like as a fan, like, yeah, I could apply for a credential and go to 50 games if I wanted to go to 50 games. But like as a fan, like that's the only drawback for me is like, I'm going to have to spend $500 on a ticket now because we're playing Duke or we're playing Houston or Connecticut or Gonzaga or whoever it is. Like that's the only drawback to this. But I mean, the matchups are fantastic. I mean, you couldn't have drawn it up any better. I mean, this is what you wanted as an Illinois fan for 15 years. And you weren't getting this with Bruce Weber and John Gross. You weren't. Yeah, you were talking about, you and Robbie were talking about the recruiting misses and all that stuff. And there was a lot of chatter about like Derrick Rose. Like Derrick Rose was never going to come to Illinois. Like just stop. Like Derrick Rose playing for Bruce Weber would have been like the weirdest. He'd have been miscast so horribly at Illinois. Like, yeah, he's from Illinois. Like, okay, so what? Bruce Weber couldn't get John Shire to come to Illinois, and Bruce Weber's brother coached John Shire at Glenbrook North, and he was never coming to Illinois. So, come on. If White Mike wasn't going to come to Illinois, D. Rose wasn't going to come to Illinois either. So it's just coaches want to do it. The players want to do it. Obviously, the fans crave these kind of matchups as well. There's really no downside except for it's going to be expensive as hell to go actually physically attend the game. So you better learn what Peacock is. You better learn how to stream because it's only a matter of time. We're going to be seeing these games on like Netflix and Hulu and Apple TV. Like that's coming. That's going to happen. I know the Big Ten just signed some 10-year, $8 billion deal for football or whatever it was. Like the second somebody else jumps in with a better deal, they're going to take that deal. That's just what they're going to do. WWE is on ESPN now. Why? Because ESPN gave them $1 billion. That's why. So I would say if you can't afford to go to games, I understand, but you better learn how to stream. You better get that streaming stick figured out. You better learn how to spell Hulu and Peacock and Roku and all these things, because that's where a lot of these games are going to be eventually. Whether it's Duke, whether it's Kansas, whether it's Penn State, doesn't matter. That's one of the unintended consequences of this whole thing. But again, the matchups are fantastic, and this is what you want. You want to have those peer-to-peer games. Like, yeah, it's great. We can play Colgate, we can play Southern and win by 37, but what do you learn about your team in those situations? Not much. I mean, it's fun to see a blowout. It's fun to, we won 120-70. Like, that's great. But you do that 9 times. How does that help you? This will help you. You get your brains bashed in. They're going to be like, well, we're not ready to be at that level yet. Or if you win, it's like, damn, they just went and beat Duke. Illinois is for real. Like, isn't this awesome?
Yeah, I remember there was a few times in the Gross era where we would start off like 9-2 or 9, and it's because we didn't play anybody the first like 11 or 12 games, and I'm like, oh, maybe we're actually good this year. And then the first time you play like a Power 4 team or something, you lose. So I agree. I'd rather play these games like this, and if you do pick up the wins, it's like now when you do get wins like that, it's like, okay, sweet, we've already secured like a top 5 or 6 seed, unless the wheels fall off. Now it's kind of a lot more just like getting your footing for March and hitting your stride into March.
Oh, like we were talking about during the season, like you had these 5 games. It was Texas Tech, Alabama, Mizzou, UConn, and Tennessee. It's like you go 2-3. That's great. Like, that's really good. Anything better than 3-2 would have been spectacular. And they probably should have beaten Alabama. They missed like 25 free throws in that game, it felt like. That game was within the grasp. And like, who knows? You win that game, maybe that jumps you up a whole seed line down the road. Those people remembered that Tennessee game from this past year of like, oh, they beat Tennessee by 13 on a neutral floor. Like that helped them. That helped their case. Beating Mizzou by 38, whatever it was. Like, that wasn't even a ball game. That helps people take notice of that stuff. So, yeah, I mean, it's good for the overall schedule. And I was looking for that gross thing, because we talked about that on the show. Because Illinois went on that. They won that. Was it 12 in a row they won this year? I think it was 12. It trickled into, was it 8 or I forget what the number was. I should know, but they won like 8 or 9 games in a row, and Boswell missed part of that because he was hurt. And it was like the best winning streak they'd had since the Gross era.
Yeah.
I think it was that tournament team. I think it was that 20.
The Maui team.
I think it was that 2012, 2013 team. They started 12-0 or 13-0. Yeah, it was the first Gross year. They lost to Mizzou, and Mizzou was a top 15 team at that point. But Illinois won. Let's see here.
It was 12 in a row this year.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, they won 12 in a row and finished and went 23-13 that season. So they started 12-0 and went 11-13 the rest of the year. Like, that's not going to happen anymore. Like, they might go 23-13, but they're not going to start 13-0, 12-0, and then just completely piss the bed. Like, that, they're not going to do that. And that's recruiting. That's not just coach good, coach bad. That's, we have players that we can overcome. Even on like a B+ day, we're still better than 3/4 of the Big Ten. So I didn't mean to go off on a tangent there again, but it's like that. You were comparing this team to that first John Gross team, and it's like, that's wild that that's even coming out of people's mouths. But that was the last time Illinois won 12 games in a row was, 13, 14 years ago with no NBA players.
Mm-mm. No, hey, Brandon Paul played for the Spurs for like a second, I think.
He did. Yeah. He did.
So Underwood got an extension. It was kind of like weirdly worded if you read it.
Yeah.
4 years based on performance. So it could potentially keep him here till 2036, which is crazy. That's 10 years away. 2036 used to sound like the future, like Back to the Future type future, like 50 years ahead. But what do you think that says just about how Brad and Josh sit with each other and just the future of Illinois basketball?
Well, I never had a doubt about Josh Whitman and Brad Underwood. I mean, the fans can say what they want. I've said this more times than I can count during the season, on Oskee Talk. It was like, for some reason, every single loss was a referendum about Brad Underwood. Like every game. It's like, if they win by 30, no one's like, wow, what a great job by Underwood. It's like, oh, well, but blah, 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 blah. But if they lose a game, it's like, oh, well, his game plan was terrible. Like, well, UConn in the Final Four had the exact same game plan and shot worse than Illinois, but they won. But Hurley's game plan was great and Brad's was terrible. Like, people just want to hate Underwood because they have some idealized version of what Illinois basketball should be or what basketball in general should be. So when they lose, they can point and say, aha, I told you. They'd rather see Brad Underwood fail than see their own team win. And I don't really understand why that is, why you're wired that way. Instead of being like, woohoo, this is great. We made the Final Four. How cool is this? It's like, well, I knew they were going to lose to UConn, so who cares? Like, not enjoying anything. You got Brad because they blew a 10-point lead twice to Wisconsin. That tells me that Brad can't win. And it's like, what the hell are you guys talking about? Like, just watch the games. Like, if you're going to bitch about every single loss, then being a sports fan isn't for you. Like, if being undefeated is the only thing that you'll take, then you should just lock yourself in a bomb shelter. Anyway, Josh Whitman handpicked Brad Underwood. This is the guy he wanted from the beginning. From when he was at Stephen F. Austin, before he was at Oklahoma State. Like, this is the guy that Josh Whitman envisioned as leading the pro. Josh Whitman saw this coming. Now, maybe it took a little longer than we thought it would. I don't think we thought it was going to take 10 years or 9 years. Most teams, you're hoping maybe 4 or 5 years in, you start really hitting that speed. But I was never concerned about that at all. And Josh Whitman's been very patient with all the coaches, even the ones that haven't won very much. Look at softball, look at women's soccer, just as a few examples. Like, they were mired in mediocrity or worse. And finally, Josh was like, I gave you time to turn this around. It's not working. We've got to move on. Like, we're just going to part company. No hard feelings. Like, it's a wins and losses business. And the wins weren't there. Lovie Smith. That was a great hire at that time. Everyone was like, you hired who? What? Lovie Smith. Like, Josh Whitman doesn't mess around. Josh Whitman is very intentional with his hires. He does not go in like Illinois' previous athletic directors have done and just, I'm going to fire him. And then, my top 3 choices said no. So now I've got to scramble and pick somebody. Josh Whitman knows what his first move, second move, third move is going to be. He's not putting all his eggs in the Brad Underwood basket. Then Brad Underwood says no. And we're like, oh, crap. Well, can we call Shaka? Can we call somebody else? Like, so he is Josh's guy and has been and will continue. As long as Josh Whitman is there and as long as Brad Underwood keeps doing like anything remotely to what he's doing now, as long as Illinois is making the tournament every year, like that's the baseline expectation. You're not going to get canned for making the tournament every year. And the more you're there, the more likely you are to get to a second weekend or a third weekend. So with that said, getting to a Final Four pays dividends, obviously. All the coaches are getting raises, rightfully so. A coach is only as good as the people around him. Obviously, Brad wants his son around. He wants Tyler around. But he wants Jeff Alexander around too. He wants Antigua around too. He wants Hamer. He wants Cameron Crocker. He wants all these guys around. You know, you have to assemble a good cast around you. It's not just, well, I'm the coach and I'm the most important thing. Like, he gets it. And so now that you've had 2 Elite Eights in 3 years, 1 Final Four, like, you know what the next step is. Now, I don't know if they get there. Is it a failure if Illinois doesn't win a national title? No. Why would that be a failure? They've never won one yet, so why would it be a failure now? They're not North Carolina where, we didn't get out of the first weekend 3 years in a row, so now we have to fire our coach and punt him into the moon. Like, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. So it also signifies that maybe I'm going out on this limb. You can join me if you want to. I want to know how you feel about it. But to me, that exemplifies a succession plan. That's what it says to me, is I've got this 10-year plan. It was a 4-year extension. He was already booked through 2032. So they just tacked on 4 more years to it. That says to me, I'm going to be 73. 2032, he'd be 70. So 6 more years, he'll be 70. Tyler would be 40 or 39 going on 40. That screams succession plan to me. That gives head coach in waiting to me. Now, maybe Tyler wants to roll the dice and see what he can do on his own. And maybe he gets something baked into his contract where if the Illinois job comes open, I'm leaving. Football teams do that. I don't know if basketball does that really. I know they have the coach kind of handpicks the next guy. I know that, but that's what I think this is about. You've clearly identified a timeline. Hey, 6 more years. I'm not going to be old per se, but I'll have been here for 15 years at this point. Let my son take over. He'll be prepared. He's not going to get thrown in unexpectedly. We're going to do this the right way. And what are your thoughts on that? That's the third piece is the thing I think is the most important, because we don't know if Illinois is going to go to the Final Four again. They may not. They might go to 4 in a row. Who knows? But you want to have that stability. The best programs, whether it's football, basketball, golf, like we've seen with Illinois, the best programs are the ones that have continuity and consistency. And if you're churning through coaches and churning through ADs and all that, like, you can't have success. Maybe one off you can, but you've got to have that consistency in place, and this does that.
Yeah, it's hard to fathom, like, oh my gosh, in 2036, maybe that'll be the plan, but it would make sense and make for a great story. And I feel like you see it less now just because coaches bounce around a lot and young people bounce around a lot just to jobs. It's just kind of how things have changed. But that would be cool to sort of become that next succession school. Like you said, you see it a lot more in football. And
but I want to say this real quick though. This is not like This is not a Nepo baby situation, though, either. This is, I've sat and I've learned, like, we talked about Auburn before. Like, Tyler's not in medical sales, right? He's not working at a hedge fund. Like, he's in there. Like, he's doing the thing and he's recruiting and he's really studying and trying to work on being a better coach. He's already got the recruiting chops. He's already identified certain players that he likes that fits this offensive profile. You know, that is the future of basketball. And I think locking Brad in also locks Tyler in to some degree. I misspoke earlier. Yeah, Brad would be like 73 when that contract is up. He'd be 70 and 32 or whatever. But that, you know, I think that's the important thing.
Yeah, that's also hard to believe that Brad is getting older. And I mean, there's a handful of coaches that still, you know, coach at an old age, but it is hard to envision Illinois having that coach that's been there for such a long time, which it's trending towards.
Yeah.
So we're already 9 years in. I mean, if he makes it through that contract, that'd be nearly 20 years. So
yeah, insane.
Yeah. And you don't see, and that hopefully means that we've had a lot of success along the way too. But transitioning quick to football, because that's the sport that's closer, and in season is it's already almost June, and they got summer workouts and all these things. And I know they go home for a while, but there's some concern, I would say, about football. It feels similar, a little bit different, but similar to the year after. No, that was pretty different. It feels like Illinois fans, for the most part, are kind of accepting the fact that it's going to be a rebuilding year, I would say. And rebuilding doesn't have to be like what it used to be, where you drop off all the way. But where are your thoughts at with Illinois football, knowing coaching staff is fulfilled? We've gotten some random JUCOs and everything filled in, but the defensive line still looks pretty weak, and there's a lot of new faces. So where do you stand with all that?
Yeah, I think the defense is going to be a work in progress for sure. And I don't know what they did to address the defensive line, really. I think, at least in my opinion, some of those kids that transferred out were a surprise on the defensive side, because you had guys like Eli Conan and McCullum, just to name a few, Jeremiah Warren. It seemed like those guys were getting some runway at the end of the season and getting some reps, and the coaching staff was eyeing them as big-time players. You know, linebacking core, you had Malachi Hood, JoJo Hayden, guys that seemed like they were key pieces, couldn't crack that rotation as much as they would have wanted to maybe this past year. Now I think some of that was also, hey, defensive coordinator is gone, defensive shuffling with the coaching staff. I think, you know, obviously that played a role in it, but that was the big surprise to me. Like, this defense got sort of leveled in the portal. Offense, not so much. Like, you knew LZ was going to leave. He kind of skipped town pretty early in the year. So you had time to prepare for that. Bowick was a big red zone target. I was a little surprised that he left. Wanted to see more out of Cole Rusk. Unfortunately, that didn't work out. He had the injury, ended that first year. Didn't get to see him play. But I think the offense is going to be fine. I think the offense is, Hauser is a lot like Altmaier in terms of size, stature, attributes. You know, you don't know like how smart he is and all that. Like, that was the thing I loved seeing from Altmaier, was that development the last couple of years. You know, his first season was a little rough. I mean, it was like, is he going to stay? Or are they going to have to go get somebody else? Because didn't look like he was the guy. And then he really got better and put the work in. And you could see it. He saw the field better. He made better decisions, saw the field, made quick reads, and took on that leadership role. Players really loved playing for him. And he was tough as hell. And like that stuff, you can't really quantify it. It's just you see it, you do it, and you hope that the next guy can do the same thing. But yeah, the defense, it was a surprise to see so many guys from that crew leave. Now, maybe Bobby Houck comes in and is like, this doesn't fit what I want to do, so we're going to go a different direction anyway. I think that 3-3-5, Walters did a little bit of that. I think that was kind of his calling card when he got to Illinois. That was like his scheme. So I don't think that's going to be a jarring change, but it's just the personnel. Like you look at the players that Illinois brought in the portal just on defense. Edmondson, a linebacker from Colorado State, had 47 tackles a year ago, had a sack and interception, but he's 6'2", 225. Like that's usual linebacker size. That's pretty prototypical, I think. Nothing to really be upset with there, but it's just the reps. They brought in Thomason from Bowling Green, had 12 tackles, 3 TFLs for a MAC school. Connor Sullivan, he's a Chicago area kid, played at Loyola Academy. Washington State, he played 3 games as a true freshman, I think. 6'4", 270. The bones are good, but again, he's very raw. Edmondson William Holmes is an intriguing prospect. Was a minor league baseball player for a number of years, then went to Utah State. Now he transfers to Illinois. That's the guy I'm very interested in seeing. I think he could be a wild card. He's going to be, I think, playing a lot right away. A lot of eyeballs on him. But it's just none of those guys from the linebacking core, the defensive line, give you there's not a lot of empirical evidence to be like, oh yeah, we're fine. We've got this guy, this guy, this guy, and this guy. It's like, well, we're going to see how this works. And we're just going to learn as we go. Yeah, I was a little bit surprised again that McCullum left and guys in the defensive backfield like Caleb Patterson, Vernon Woodward, like guys like that leaving. I think the defense is going to be a problem. And maybe, I don't know a lot about Houck. I know he was at Montana for a long time. My hope is that it's an opportunistic defense that causes a lot of turnovers, because I don't think they're going to be stopping a lot of people on the run, especially with fewer down linemen. It's going to be harder to stop the run. It just is. So I feel like you're going to see a lot of, it's not going to be like Lovie Smith bad. The players are better in general. But you're going to see a lot of those, 500-yard games. You're going to see a lot of high-scoring games. I think it's going to be a lot of Illinois gave up 34. Illinois gave up 38. Illinois gave up 42. Certainly when you're playing Oregon and Ohio State, and Illinois' defense was all right last year. They were okay. They weren't great, but they weren't awful, and they were getting cooked. So how is this unit going to fare? So I think the offense is going to be fine. I don't know who the big-time playmakers are yet. I want to see a lot of Valentine. I love Caden Fagan switching to tight end. And that's great. And that's where he should be. Use him as a hammer, as like an H-back if you want to do that. But I think him being a tight end is going to help his pro stock as well as he enters his senior season. But it's also going to be a big weapon for Hauser. Again, we don't know who the best weapons on this team really are. Hauser's a good weapon. He's a good dual threat kind of quarterback, like a read option guy. But we haven't gotten a real good sense of who's who yet. And it's still early. We got months before the season starts. But yeah, to me, the defense is a big area of concern. I think it should be for everybody else.
Yeah, it's hard to ignore. And I think the main reason I'm concerned too is, well, one, with Altmaier being there the last couple years, it felt like the offense had a pretty high floor, and Lunny was just locked in so many games. So now it's like, okay, that piece is gone. And obviously it wasn't just Luke. He had other pieces that were very helpful. Now with that piece gone, it's like, okay, if the offense isn't great, like unless the defense is some miraculously like way better, then it's gonna be interesting. And it's funny, a lot of the points you're talking about, like the defense not being good and everything, it's like in the back of my head, I'm like, well, so it's gonna be like the same it's been the last couple of years, like where the offense.
Well, I just mean, but just to piggyback on that, you knew who the leaders were last year. You had Miles Scott, you had Rosiak, you had Gabe Akis, Alec Bryant. Like you knew who you could lean on and trust defensively. So who's that guy now? Is it Kreutz? Maybe. There are some other, Oda Luga was another guy. It was a pretty good piece, an underrated piece to that team. But now you said you also lose like Malachi Hood, the guy who we thought was going to be maybe the next in line. So you know where the leaders were. And now, other than Bailey, who's great, going to be in the NFL next year, you got X coming back. See, it's not, the cupboard's not entirely bare. You've got X back. You've got Bailey is back.
Juice Clark
really emerged last year. So you've got some guys. You do. But we saw when X went down with the injury last year, it was like the whole defense was a house of cards. Like he's one guy. Like he's one guy in your secondary. Like I don't care how good he is. He's not that good. He doesn't affect the entire defense not being able to stop anybody. So yeah, that's what concerns me. You have those handful of guys. Is Rasetic going to step up and get better? Is Heckel going to step up and get better? I'm just naming guys off the top of my head. That's my biggest worry is who is the, if something happens to X, if something happens to Matt Bailey, where do you turn? Like, who is the next man up that you're like, we trust this guy? Is it Barna? Is it Pat Farrell? Maybe those guys step up and emerge as the next wave of leaders. I'd love to see that. But yeah, a lot of concerns for the defense. I don't think it's going to be Lovey bad where guys are like looking around because they don't know where they're supposed to be on the field. It's not going to be like that. Like Bielema's not going to allow that shit. Houck's not going to allow that. Like we have competent coaches that know how the stuff works. I'm not worried about that. It's just, do you have the horses? And I'm not sure that they do on defense. The offense, to your point, if the offense is scoring 17, that really caps your ceiling. I think they could still be a 7-5 type of team with the schedule they have, but you're going to have to score points and put the ball in the end zone. You're not going to need that against UAB or SIU, but Big Ten's got a lot of good offenses, and you got to be ready. Bring your hard hat. I'm not sure where those guys are yet. We'll probably know more in the next couple of weeks or months, but yeah, right now there's not a lot of guys where you're like, oh, it's good we've got this guy.
Yeah, exactly. And I think if Hauser comes in and he's the real deal, it'll solve a lot of problems because just from a fan base perspective too, like ease the nerves, like, oh, you got a quarterback that knows what he's doing, which again, at Illinois, we haven't had that often. So Luke just made it look so easy and was just so calm, cool, and collected. And he wasn't perfect. He had his interceptions and stuff at times, but just such a cool guy on and off the field, and just such a confident player, and really just seemed to make every play late. So if Hauser can come in and look confident and demand the offense and stuff, at least you can hang your hat on and be like, hey, we're gonna, score 25 points a game and be able to run the ball and stuff like that. So there's concerns, but there's a lot of time left, and Bielema obviously knows what he's doing, and I like the fact that he the thing that I'm most excited for is, like, yes, there's a lot of new faces, but I like the fact that Bielema basically realized, like, something needs to change. This isn't working. And he didn't just stick, be stubborn and be like, we're keeping Aaron Henry. We're doing this. We're keeping that. Like, that was a big change. And even if the defense is just as bad this year, it's like, okay, well, we have something new and we have an identity. We run this weird defense. We do weird stuff, but that's what we do, and it's going to pay off sometimes. So I like.
Well, and I think that's a good point too. Is like nobody is really doing this thing on defense. It's kind of like on offense. You see Navy and Air Force and Army, they run the triple option, and it's like, oh, they run for 350 yards a game. Yeah, because no one knows how to defend it because no one does it. Or it's, the wing T or the wishbone or something. Like, it's a very unorthodox defense. And so maybe that's your edge. Maybe that's your thing. It's like, we can catch people off guard because no one's seen this kind of thing before. I don't know how much the Maryland staff or the Northwestern staff or the Ohio State staff is studying Montana football. I don't know how much tape they're watching of the Grizz. I will say, though, if you watched that Montana State FCS playoff game, big yikes, because they gave up about 7,000 yards, give or take, in that game. So there are causes for concern, but I think maybe you can throw that additional wrinkle in of, like, this is something not everyone's seen before. It's not a base 4-3 or, something where you can scout against it. So maybe that's why it's like, oh, we lost these other guys, but that's okay. They weren't really a fit for this style anyway. Again, it's too early to tell. But one thing I did want to add, if this is a rebuild year, and what does that mean? Is that 6-6? Is that 2-10? Like, what does that mean? If this thing deteriorates quickly, I think you're going to see a lot of these younger guys. I said this last year too, like, this is going to give the younger guys an opportunity to bubble up. And maybe you just throw in some freshmen and be like, with the class coming in, there's a lot of very good, promising recruits in the 26 class. Maybe you throw those guys in, like Eberhardt's an example. You're like, all right, let's see what you got, kid. We're 3-8, so screw it. Let's turn them loose and see what they can do. I think that might be something to look at, is that if it's clear that this team's not going to compete, not going to be a threat in the Big Ten, I'm not even going to entertain the playoff thing. That's dumb. If they weren't a playoff team last year, they sure as shit are going to be one this year. But if they're like not even going to get to a bowl, if it's like pretty clear, like, we're 4-6, I say you just turn them loose and see what those young guys can do. And maybe that's an opportunity for the quarterback spot as well, because you have Clayton, you have Carson Boyd, you have some guys that, if you don't play them, probably aren't going to stick around. Lapati already left. He already flipped. So maybe that's an opportunity for some of those young guys to emerge as well. You got to play them at some point. You can't just trust that all of these guys are going to stick around for 4 or 5 years and be redshirt juniors and redshirt seniors. Eventually, you just got to unleash them and see what they can do. So I think that is something to keep an eye on. Again, you're not going to really know until you're halfway through the season. I do like that the bye week is squarely in the middle of the season this year. You play 6 games, you have a bye, and then there's 6 more games. That's in the truest sense, that's going to be a line of demarcation. You're going to know by those first 6 games what we got and what we ain't got. And then I think you can pivot and strategize for the final 6 games and figure out what the mentality is. Are we preparing for next year, or do we have a chance at a bowl game and maybe, go full throttle at the end of the season?
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. I could see a lot of different outcomes for this team, and I'm looking forward to it, but hopefully summer doesn't go too fast. But Drew, thanks for joining. This has been awesome. We just went an hour talking about stuff in May, which is crazy, kind of hard to believe. So why don't you, if you could kind of plug everybody, like what do you got coming up? Are you going to have Oskee Talk coming out? Like, what do you got coming up this summer? I think you're muted.
Can you hear me now? Groovy. Bitchin'. All right. So usually in the off season, try to do some more just off the wall kind of things. Like we'll do different lists, kind of like what you were doing with the recruiting stuff of, biggest recruiting misses and things like that. A couple of years back, a couple of summers ago, we did the hate poll, which is basically me as an Illini fan and whoever else is on the show. We're listing the teams that we hate the most, like Indiana basketball, Michigan football, whatever. We'll probably do some stuff like that. Be looking out for some stuff from me as the draft gets closer. Working on a piece for Keaton Wagler. Also going to be putting together a list. So maybe if those of you that are listening or watching have some games that come to your mind, I'm putting together a list of, I don't know if it's going to be 50 or 100 or whatever my brain can handle bandwidth wise, but basketball, like the greatest Illinois basketball games of all time. So coming up with some stuff there. So you got to kind of mix things up in the off season. There's not a lot going on, especially once the spring sports are done, which is going to be probably pretty quick for a lot of those sports. Unless golf gets their act together this week in the next couple of days. And track and field's doing okay, but looks like it's going to be a quick trip for Illini baseball in Omaha. Look, an 8 seed or 9 seed's not great. So just working on those kind of fun, I don't know if you can call them like listicles. I don't like, I'm a radio guy. We had to do those list social media posts like all the time of, 8 places to find falafel in Mattoon. Like whatever. But that's the kind of stuff that we try to mix in those doldrums of the off season, whether it's football, basketball. We did a thing. This could be interesting. We were coming up with like the best names in Illini history. Maybe try to track some of those folks down. That could be fun. So I've got some things that are cooking in my brain, whether they make it to the written page or the audio airwaves. I'm not sure, but NBA draft is going to be good. There's at least stuff to talk about with that, which we haven't. We just talked earlier in the show, like we didn't have anything to talk about NBA draft wise for a decade. And now it's like, ooh, does Stojakovic stay? Where does Boswell go? Where does Wagler go? Who's the next possible one and done? Is it Quentin Coleman? How's he going to do? Like, it's exciting to see what the future is going to hold for basketball. So maybe some of those things we'll do our positional previews for football, obviously, as the summer rolls on. But yeah, so if you already listen, thank you. If you don't, you can subscribe to Oskee Talk wherever you get your podcasts. We're on Spotify, Apple, YouTube Music, all those providers, iHeart, whatever you use. Just search for Oskee Talk, Oskee, and you can subscribe absolutely free. Try to put out at least one episode every week. Sometimes it's hard with what's going on now. It's a little hard to, prime the pump and get things out there, but definitely want to do more of these things in the off season as well, just to touch base and do a temperature check. But yeah, that's it. So shout out to Liddyville, liddyville.com, always a proud sponsor of Oskee Talk as well. Got some fun and exciting merch if you're adding to your Illini collection. Good spot for that. And that's pretty much it. This is about how long an episode goes when I talk to myself. So it's good to have somebody to bounce off of.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's we're all in this content game together in the off season. You got to be creative and stuff. So no, yeah. Thanks again. Make sure to subscribe to Oskee Talk. Find them wherever you find your podcast. This has been the Oskee Talk Live / Champagne Room Live, whatever you want to call it. And
yeah,
we'll definitely have Drew on again soon. So thanks again, and we're signing off here. And ILL.
I.
It's giving me an error message. Let's see.